Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be looking at die cuts versus stencils. And what I have done is I have created a stencil with the die cut. So let's take a look at this set closer that I'm going to be using today. It's by Birch Press Design and it's called Viola Plate. Now I'm going to open it up here. This does have a little bit of price. I got this from Scrap and Stamp, but this is 3 heavy layer steel 100% steel craft dies. So let's take a look at these. There are 3 sets, and this is the most bottom portion that we're going to use if we're going to use them all together. So we'll take a look at this here. There's A, B, and C, and this tells you what kind of way to layer them. So let's take a look at layer A. Layer A is the most top portion of this die set. So if you're going to layer them all 3 together, this would be the very top. Then the B1 is just a little bit thicker, and look at that quality of that steel. They've got some weight to them, let me tell you. And then this is C, so this is even more, and it's got some stitch design. So you can use these all together, or you can use them separately, and you would just simply layer them together like this once you got them cut out. So a little hard to see there, but stick with me, we're going to be die cutting these out, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, to save some time, I've gone ahead and die cut out the pieces already. So each of those 3 die cut plates, as well as a stitch circle die done in vellum. And I've die cut this hello in 2 separate pieces, a metallic piece and a regular die cut piece. So you can see the 3 different colors that I've done here. One, the most bottom layer, I've gone ahead and I've die cut that from just white cardstock. I found some really great white cardstock that I've been using lately, and I'll share that with you in another video. I'll also link it down below what I've been using. It's got a pretty good price point to it. So I'm just going ahead and using my craft pick and just popping out some of those little extra pieces that were stuck in there. And I do apologize, you're going to see my hair kind of poking in and out through the video, and I didn't do it today. I just recently got it cut. So I was very happy about that, but I didn't style it, so it kind of looks like a rogue troll doll in the video, so I do apologize. I'm just simply adding some liquid adhesive to the back of this bottom panel. So this would be the panel C that we have here, and that's the one with the stitching and some of the die cuts, and just adding the liquid adhesive to the back, and then I will go ahead and apply that down to a standard A2 size card base. Now I like the liquid adhesive for this because it gives me some wiggle room to make sure that I get it onto the card base properly, as well as when you're layering these die cuts, you do want some wiggle room to get them slid just kind of perfectly so that they match up. So I'll go ahead and finish adding the adhesive, and then I'm going to just pop it onto my card. And I apologize, that's a bit off camera and my crazy hair getting in the way, but I wanted to make sure I did get that nice and even on my card panel. And then once I have that all secured on there and making sure that I've got it straight, I can go ahead and add the next layer, which would be the layer B, or the second thickest cardstock, and I've done that in kind of like a light teal. Now you can choose any color for these. I really like the fact that you can use each one of these plates individually. Now I haven't done that here, I've just simply done it layering all 3 together just to give it that look, but I wanted to let you know that there's so many different combinations that you can use this with this one particular die set, that it is well worth the money that I spent for it. And you can use it for any type of cards, for birthday, holiday, sympathy. That's what I really loved about this one in particular. It also kind of reminded me a little bit of a poinsettia, so I thought this was a good investment because there was so much versatility that I could get out of this set. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just kind of speed this up a bit so that we can get on with our card. So as you can see, I now have layered all 3 of those all together. I didn't want to bore you with gluing them all down. You know how to glue them down, so it's just simply layering one on top of the other. And now I want to bring in my next element here. So I've got that stitch circle vellum piece, as well as these 2 hellos, just some simple hello dies. I don't know where I got these from. If I can figure that out, I'll link them down below. Again, just using some liquid adhesive. I wanted to layer these up to give them dimension. And then that liquid adhesive will allow me some time to get them all lined up perfectly. I just used the metallic cardstock just on the topmost layer. I didn't want to waste it by stacking that many together with the metallic cardstock. You can just use white behind it and it works out fine. And I'm just going to set that aside to dry. In that meantime, I have added some little crystals to the middle of these little flowers, or poinsettias is what I'll call them right now. And I simply just got those gems right off of Amazon, I believe. So I'm using my crystal katana, and I'll link those gems down below because that set I believe is from Amazon, so I'll go ahead and link that down below. And I'm using some glossy accents to adhere them down. I like the glossy accents because it is a really strong, clear drying adhesive. So again, just using that crystal katana and placing them in between. Now you can see this is the reverse. I've done 2 of these cards. So I cut this one out, has the white on top, and the other one had the blue on top. So simply just adding the little crystals to the middle of those florals, those poinsettias. And to do the hello element, I pulled out my great big Xyron sticker machine, and I just ran those through, and that way it kind of hides the adhesive on the back. Otherwise, any adhesive that you're going to really use on the back of vellum will show through. So this is kind of my go-to. Otherwise, I could have just used liquid adhesive and only applied it to the back of the vellum piece where the hello is, so that would be hidden. But I didn't want to take any risk of that vellum lifting up or accidentally folding. So I just ran it through the Xyron, and that makes the whole thing a sticker, and you can't see the adhesive on the background. And that way, when I adhere it down onto this kind of 3D layered cardstock piece, I know that it's going to stick down, it's not going to come off, and I really did not want this element to lift off. So this is a simple solution for that. Go ahead and peel that backing off and get it lined up straight on top of your card. And then just simply press it down. It's really that simple. So this is a really quick and simple card, and I'm doing these cards actually today for the Scrap and Stamp Random Acts of Cardness, and my word today was compliment. So I created just this simple, well, it is simple to make, but it looks very detailed. It wasn't that hard to make, but inside is where I'm going to put my compliment. And I don't think we compliment each other enough, especially with everything going on in the world today. I wanted to make a whole bunch of cards because my coworkers really are rocking it out lately. We've all been distanced and we're quite close. Everyone there kind of feels like family, and it's really been hard for us to be away from each other and not in the office every day. So I thought I would kind of just make these compliment cards just to let them know that they're all doing a great job. We're very supportive that way, and I really appreciate that about my coworkers. And I thought it would be really fun for them to receive these special compliment cards to let them know they're doing a good job, and you know, even though that we're so far away from each other. So again, just simply adhering down this next little hello element to the top of this card base. I like that I reversed them. So on the first card I had the white cardstock on the bottom and the dark navy blue on top, and then I reversed it so that I would have the white cardstock on top and the navy blue on the bottom. And I really like those 2 different looks. Same die set, but you definitely get different looks with the different cardstocks that you can choose. I think this would look really pretty with some purples and pinks together for a spring or a summer looking card, or even some oranges and reds would really be nice for summertime, I think. Now I'm going to bring in the stamp set that I'll be using for the inside complement, and this is the Hello Beautiful from My Favorite Things. Again, another very versatile stamp set that I just absolutely love. I really love wishing people a happy birthday. When I say happy birthday to my friends, I always say happy birthday beautiful, and this stamp set was perfect for that. So I also really like it for this compliment, as there's some really great sayings in here. Again, I'm using my Versa Clarify Nocturne ink, and it was really hard to pick a sentiment, but I decided to go with Amazing Marvelous You. So hello, amazing, marvelous you. This is something really simple, and I think I can write anything on the inside just to let that person know that I appreciate them and the work they're doing, and I think that they're great. So I'll go ahead and pull out my sentiment. And I'm using my Stamp Perfect. I highly recommend at this point that you use some sort of stamping platform when you're doing your sentiment. That way you don't screw up at this point. It would be really tragic if I went to stamp my sentiment down and I used like a block and I didn't get it stamped perfectly the first time. Although my Versa Clair Nocturne ink is fantastic for getting it done right the first time, it's not a chance that I want to take at this point. So I get my sentiment lined up and I realize, oh, I need to turn my stamp platform to the side here just so I can stamp down perfectly. And I'll go ahead and adhere that down onto the lid of the Stamp Perfect, again making sure that I get it nice and straight, and sorry about the troll hair again. Just giving it a nice light push. When you're using a stamp platform or a stamp block for stamping sentiments, we have a tendency to press down too hard, and that is the biggest mistake that I think we can do. What happens is it ends up smushing out the stamp itself and it gets too thick. So when you're doing a sentiment, you want to make sure that you're applying just enough pressure. You don't want to smudge it or get the sentiment too thick. So just a nice light little bit of pressure on top of the stamp, or even just using your fingertips, but don't press down too hard. Again, one of the most common mistakes that we tend to do as stampers is applying too much pressure to our sentiments. So nice and light pressure and even pressure throughout, and you will get a perfect stamp of your sentiment. And look at that amazing, marvelous U. For my second sentiment, I decided to go with the My Favorite Things Anything But Basic Encouragement. Again, another fantastic stamp set for encouragement and for letting people know how much you care about them. And this one I decided to go with, I was debating between You Got This, but I decided to go for You're Killing It, which is really funny because that's something that we tend to say quite a bit at my office, is telling people you're killing it and you're doing a great job. So I thought this one would be perfect. Again, same thing, just lining it up nice and straight as possible using that Nocturne Versa Clair fine ink and my Stamp Perfect to get a nice clear stamp for my sentiment. And that's our first two cards finished. Here's a closer look at them. I really like the teal and navy blue together against that white. I think it's so pretty, and adding those little gems just really brings out some sparkle in it, because every card needs some sparkle and shine. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at both of them together. So fun. Let's take a look at the second cards that I'm going to start with. I am using the Waffle Flower, I think it's the Waffle Flower Craft Mat. It's something new that I have, and it is amazing. I love it for ink blending. And I've pulled out some cracked pistachio, that's hard to say, cracked pistachio Distress Oxide, along with Lucky Clover and some peacock feathers. I haven't done this color combination before, and I thought it'd be good to try these three colors out, and surprisingly enough, I really liked how they looked. So we're going to start off with a cracked pistachio, and we're going to do some ink blending. I think what I'll do is I'm going to speed this up because you guys have seen ink blending before. Okay, so I get a good, nice, thick layer of the cracked pistachio down, and then bring in the Lucky Clover, and then go back and forth between those two colors to get a nice, even blend. I'm using my foam blending brush because I really want to saturate this cardstock with a lot of that ink. Otherwise, to get a lighter ink, I would use something like the Picket Fence blending brushes. So once I get the color down, I want to set that aside to really dry. I'm just using a brush there to blend the colors in together. And I've pulled out the B plate to create as a stencil for my ink blending. And what I want to do is I'm going to be using Versamark ink to do some clear heat embossing with this. The technique that this actually is called, I believe they call it Joseph's Coat. And reflecting Joseph's coat of many colors is where I believe it comes from. And I'm just using a foam brush again, or sorry, the foam piece for the blending brush, and just dabbing in that Versamark in between each of the little die cut portions of this B-plate layer. And yeah, that's all you do, is you just go ahead and go back and forth, make sure you really saturate that paper with the Versamark ink. And once you've finished the piece off and got everything all inked up, you can lift up your stencil and you can see where it's shiny there, all the Versamark inking, and it looks so pretty. And now what we want to do is I'm going to bring in my coffee filter and some clear heat embossing powder and simply just layer it over top. Now what I didn't show you on camera, but before I started putting the Versamark ink on, I brought my embossing powder to my project and just sprinkled some on and made sure that nothing was sticking to it prior, because that ink is so saturated on that paper. I hit it with my heat tool, I set it aside to dry really well, and then I brought in that embossing powder, sprinkled it on first to make sure nothing stuck to it before, and then once I knew that it was good and dry, that's when I put the Versamark ink on with the stencil. And again, just tapping it off, making sure everything comes off, and then I can go ahead and hit that with my heat tool. And I actually did this a couple times, in which I put the powder on, I heat it up with my embossing heat gun, and then right away, while it was still hot, I added some more of the embossing powder to it, and that kind of stuck great. I didn't have to add any more of the Versamark ink to it. It just kind of stuck because the embossing was hot and sticky already, if that makes sense. And then I just did that about 2 or 3 times just to get some really good layers and thickness of the embossing powder for that. So I'll show you here how it heats up. This has got to be my favorite part, is watching the embossing powder melt. And yes, you can see I am actually heating that right on my waffle flower mat. That waffle flower mat is heat resistant, or it's heat safe, so you can go ahead and emboss right on it, which is really great, because then your project isn't you know, being blown all over your desk, or in my instance, trying not to burn your hands while you're heat embossing. That's something that I've done. You don't have to worry about pulling your tweezers out either. And look at that, isn't that beautiful? I just love that. So you can see how shiny it is, the thick layer that I got. And now I'm pulling out the Distress Oxide in Black Soot. So I start off here just with a regular foam tool again. I'm going to be applying a thick layer of this Distress Oxide of the Black Soot all over my project, just to darken up. So what we've done is we've preserved anything that's trapped underneath the embossing powder is preserved. All that color is preserved. So we can add any color we want over top now. And I wanted to go with a dark layer. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use a dark blue or a black, so I decided I'd kind of try both. So I'm starting off with the Black Soot and just really giving it a good ample amount of ink and brushing that over top. And then I'll come back in once it's all inked up with my cloth and wipe off any of the ink that's on top of the embossing. You'll have to wipe it off because of the embossing resists the ink, so you'll want to wipe it off. And we'll go ahead and show you that. Again, you can use any cloth. I like to use a microfiber cloth. It seems to wipe off all the ink really nicely, and then I just throw them in the wash. Some people have used like the Swiffer dusting cloths and then just throw them out, but I have a whole bunch of these crafting cloths on hand, and then I can just wash them up and reuse them. And look at that, it's beautiful. Just getting off all that extra ink, and you can see that embossing come back to life. And you can see that beautiful color that we've preserved underneath. Just so pretty. Now, I didn't mind the look of the Black Soot, but I kind of thought the navy is probably what I wanted more. So I decided to pull in, I didn't have any oxides of the chipped sapphire, so I just pulled in my Distress ink in chipped sapphire. And I'm just going to go ahead and go over top of this whole project again, just deepening it up, and that'll give me a really dark blue, blue-black look to it. So again, just adding this over top, Same process, you'll just saturate the paper all over, and then you'll bring your cloth back in and wipe up all that extra distress ink. And here's the finished look of that. So it's just a little bit darker, looks a little more navy blue now, and give that a good wipe, and you can see the embossing just brighten up and look so beautiful and shiny again. Again, I think this would be really pretty with some pinks and purples. Be fun to do. And look at that. I just love how it comes to life when you give it a nice little buffing. Alright, so now that I've got this all done, I can go ahead and do the same sort of process that I did with the original cards. Look at that, just so pretty. Look at that shine. So set that aside and go ahead and do the second piece. And this time, instead of using the black soot, I am simply just going to ink it up with the distress inking, and I'm going to directly go in with it with the chipped sapphire. I'm not going to use the black soot at all. I'll just go ahead and bring in the chipped sapphire distress ink itself, and it's so beautiful. I just love this process. It's like a little magic show when you get it all done and buffed up. So we'll go ahead and skip to the finished project, and you can see that one is just slightly darker than the other, and that was because it has that black soot underneath. So there is those, and here's the finished project. I just finished it the same way I did as the first card, adding the vellum and the hello die as well as the little bit of sparkle. Look at that, so much fun. Here's a closer look at the card, and for the sentiment inside this one, I used the My Favorite Things, Anything But Basic Friendship, You Are All Kinds of Amazing. And then for the second one, I used Picket Fence, Here Is Where I Work, and You Are Appreciated. And here's a look at all four cards. Again, Amazing Marvelous You with the dark blue on top, and then here's the white cardstock on top with You're Killing It. These cards were really quick and easy to make, and if you're looking to make a lot of cards in a short order, this is a really fun way to do it as well. And let's take a look at both styles together. Leave me a comment down below and let me know which one you like better, die cut versus stencil. As always, you can find the materials used in today's video down below in the description and over at my blog. Any purchases made through these links helps me to bring you future content and tutorials at no extra cost to you. Another way you can show your support is simply by liking, sharing, and subscribing so as not to miss any future posts. Thanks again, until next time, P.S. I love you.